1, 2, 3. It's ready, no? Geisel High School. Let's be quiet. I know we're excited. I know many of you have started to take out your phones to take pictures of the Prime Minister, to video record. Now, our most honorable Prime Minister, Andrew Holness, is here. He's accompanied by our Member of Parliament, Ms. Carencia Morrison. There are several other dignitaries here from the Office of the Prime Minister and persons in government. Can you please put your hands together and give the Prime Minister and his team the Geisel High School welcome? Okay. That thunderous applause from 1,005 students indicates to me and to all of us, Prime Minister Andrew Holness, that you are welcome to be here at Geisel High School. At this time, you have to listen very carefully. I know you're excited. Grade 7s? Yes, I know. We're excited to hear from our Prime Minister. He's going to be greeting you very briefly. At the end of the Prime Minister's greeting, we'll return to our various subject classes while the Prime Minister, it's just a little son. The grade 7s are crying for the son. He won't have you in it for very long. And that is an indication to the Prime Minister that he'll do something so in the future you'll not be in the sun. All right? So now, I was saying to you that the Prime Minister, at the end of his greeting you, will go to our various subject classes. We'll continue with teaching and learning, while all grades 11, 12, and 13 will engage in a session with the Prime Minister. They have much that they want to say to him. So at this time, again, I'm going to ask you to put your hands together as I now hand over to our Prime Minister, the Most Honorable Andrew Michael Holness.
Thank you very much, Principal Donald. But before I speak, I'm going to invite your Member of Parliament to say a few introductory remarks. Carencia Morrison, MP.
Thank you, Prime Minister. Geisel High, good morning. It is certainly a pleasure to again visit Geisel High School. And Principal Donald likes to show off that his school is the beacon, the king of the hills. The what? The champion school on the hill. And the reason we have Geisel High as #1, the hardworking members of staff. You know, the Prime Minister's team was saying, what a clean school compound. What a way the children are orderly and disciplined. And I know that that is a credit to the hard work of the staff. Now, it is with great pleasure that I welcome Prime Minister of Jamaica, hardworking Prime Minister, champion Prime Minister. I will not call him Brogard today, but we know this is our Prime Minister who believes in education and who believes in youth. Prime Minister of Jamaica, the Most Honorable Andrew Michael Holness.
Thank you very much, MP Carencia. Now, you may not know this, but I spent a few years in the classroom. So I do have a few techniques that I can use to bring an audience, particularly a classroom audience, to attention. One of them that I used to use quite effectively is to say to all the students in the class, stand you're all standing. And then I would say to them, stretch as high as you can. So I'm going to ask all of you now to stretch as high as you can. As high as you can. As high as you can. And then we're going to count to 5. And then at 5, we're going to have silence. So, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's good to be with you at Guys Hill High School. You're all looking so beautiful, well-dressed, orderly. I want to commend your principal, Principal Donald, and your staff members, your teachers and your ancillary staff, your administrative staff, for doing such a wonderful job with the school. Please give yourselves a round of applause. I can know when a school is doing well. First of all, as you enter, noise is controlled. Secondly, as you look around, the school environment is clean. Thirdly, regardless of the physical circumstances of the school, the plant is maintained. Fourthly, even without adequate landscape, there is an attempt at gardening and greening the school. And fourthly, the students take pride in their attire and physical appearance. And then as you get to interact, you will see further as to whether or not discipline is in the school, whether or not the students relate to each other with respect. And then we begin to understand the academic performance of the school. And just from my brief interaction on my observance of these I call them features of good education, I can tell that Guys Hill High School is doing very well. I'm here today to speak with your sixth form, which I hear is doing exceptionally well. I gather that since we had introduced the career advancement program and now the sixth form pathway, that your sixth form program has expanded. This is good news. This is, in my mind, an example of a successful policy in education. The policy of the government is to extend the number of years that our young people stay in school. Now, no policy is perfect, and there is always room for improvement. Certainly, before I'm even asked, I will say up front that I am aware of your space constraint, that you would need a sixth form block. I'm being very careful, Mr. Principal. You didn't ask for it. But I know when we go into the private meeting, you're going to ask me for it. But it is something that we will have to look at very carefully as to how we expand the school. But what is clear to me is that your school is attracting our young people for further development of their education, and the government stands ready to support this. But my message to the school population gathered is that for all of you, whether you're in grade 7 or you're about to do exit exams this year, CXC and others, 2024 must be the year when all of you commit to doing better in your various endeavors. I want all of you to commit to get better grades this year than you got last year. Who is going to make that commitment today? Who is committing to do better this year academically than you did last year? Mr. Principal, I am not convinced. It was not so long ago that I too stood where you are standing now. And I can remember my time in high school. It was a fun time. It was a good time. And I want you to enjoy your high school experience. I want you to get as much out of it as you can. But when I reflect on my own experience in high school, you know, I said to myself, if I had only paid more attention to my Spanish teacher, I would be fluent in Spanish today. And when you graduate from school, you're going to have the same experience. You're going to reflect on your time in high school, and you're going to say, if only I had paid more attention to my math teacher. If only I had paid more attention in my geography class, in my accounting class, in my English class. And there is a reason for that. That as you progress through life and you encounter challenges, you will have to fall back on the education that you receive. And any gaps or shortcomings in your education, you're going to find it more difficult to deal with the challenges of life. So I'm here today to say to you, the general student population gathered, I want you to commit this year to being more focused on your education, to participating more in your school activities. I want you to commit, the entire school population of Geisel High, to do more in 2024. Are you going to commit to that? The second thing I want to say to you is that young people today are being bombarded with all kinds of negative messages and images in social media. I see people with their smartphones making small videos of this, and today everyone is a citizen journalist. And that's fine. But we know, the science is clear, that the unfiltered information that our young people are being exposed to is having an impact, a negative impact at that, on our behavior. It is the case that the information that we are being fed is making us more susceptible and permissive to violence. And we have seen last year several unfortunate incidents of our young people being either perpetrators or victims of violent acts. Thankfully, I have never heard of any incident at Geisel High School making our national news, and I want you to continue in that vein. But I want you to make an even greater commitment. As students, I want you to commit to peace. That if you find yourself in any form of conflict, if someone does you wrong, if you feel you have been unfairly treated, if you feel you have been violated or dissed in any way, that your first response is not going to be a violent, aggressive, anger, or physical response. That your first response is going to be, let us try to reason it out. Let us try to talk about it. Because in 2024, we're going to make this the most peaceful year that Jamaica has experienced. And that peace must start in our schools. It starts with you. So, to the wonderful students, the bright students of Guys Hill High School, thank you so much for your attention. Thank you so much for your hospitality and the lovely reception. God bless your school and your teachers. God bless you all, and thank you.
So students, you have heard it from our own Prime Minister. You have recorded it, so I'm sure you'll be able to play it again and again, and you listen to the words of wisdom. And certainly we'll continue to ensure that we remain a beacon right here on the Hill, especially when it comes to the area of peace and academic excellence. Can you again put your hands together for our Prime Minister? So you have waited patiently, you have seen him, you have heard him, you have also heard from our Member of Parliament. We're going to be continuing with the business of education while the Prime Minister, or grades 11, 12, and 13, they were nicely seated in the auditorium. So they have not seen our Prime Minister yet, they have just heard him. So they are going to be having this intimate moment, a close-up moment with the Prime Minister to have their rap. So at this time, those students who are on the C block, I'm going to ask those students on the C block to just move to your classes now. So we are in the session, so we are continuing. We walk on the right, the rest of us will remain in place. We'll remain where we are. Those on the C block, you'll move. So teachers, please assist them to move as briskly as possible to their classes. While that is happening, those under the foyer right down where the nurses, you may also move to. We walk on the right, and once we walk on the right, we'll get it together very quickly. Grade 10s, you realize you'll be the last to move today. That doesn't normally happen. Ms. Hyde, if it's necessary for some to use the administrative block, you may just do so to walk so that they are able to go as quickly as possible to their classes. You need them. Thank you very much.
All right, everyone, good morning to you and welcome everybody. The Prime Minister of Jamaica, the most honorable Andrew Holness. Sorry, I'm blocking you, right? Thank you so much. You may be seated. Prime Minister, you have with you this afternoon the beautiful, talented, very hardworking 5th and 6th formers of Guys Hill High School. And Prime Minister, the motto of the school is creme de la creme, which means these are the best of the best. And Guys Hill has a couple of things that they say. They talk about excellence, patience, energy, dignity, integrity, honesty, performance. Those are words, Prime Minister, that you encourage because these are positive words that engender a good citizen. And as you said to the rest of the school population, they want to hear it again here, but a little bit more, your message of the focus that we want for you to become good, strong citizens of Jamaica. I'm going to tell you more about what the Prime Minister said, but your principal, Mr. Donald, will open with a few words. It's on.
Thank you very much, our MC, Press Secretary, Ms. Francis, Prime Minister Holness, or Chairman of the School Board, or Member of Parliament, my student leaders, my teachers who are in here, along with my grades 11, 12, and 13. Good afternoon. Indeed, you have assisted me in welcoming the Prime Minister and his team here today, joined by our own Member of Parliament from Northeast, St. Catherine. Prime Minister, we're sure that your being here today is not coincidental. It's quite purposeful. Students, you may well know that in the Prime Minister's household, he's very familiar with St. Catherine High School. No pun is intended. And he's right here at another St. Catherine High School. But we pride ourselves in saying that we're Guys Hill High School number. We're Guys Hill High School number 1. And Prime Minister, as you are here with these, my grades 13 and 12 students, some of them were quite excited when I told them the Prime Minister is coming here. And I wanted to find out what's the cause of this excitement. Why are you excited? And it's interesting, they said to me, sir, the Prime Minister is young. So what does that mean? When he comes here, he will understand that we need a block. We don't need to be sharing your cottage with you, sir. So I said to them, not only is the Prime Minister young, but the Prime Minister is coming to a school headed by a young principal. So indeed, we'll be able to have that. So Prime Minister, inside here are also the grades 11 children, and they're excited to have you here too. This is supposed to be our auditorium. And this auditorium actually houses 4 classes every single day. So we had to pull apart our shutters in order to accommodate them. But our grade 11 students, as you have heard, academic excellence, that's a part of our core value. We're doing very well. And at this very moment, I need the entire group in here to know that the Cardi student, the student with the highest average in agricultural science, double award, comes from the Caribbean. I'm talking in the Caribbean, comes from Guys Hill High School. Can I have her stand? Avia Finley, the top student for agricultural science, Cardi, in the Caribbean. So, and that's just, thank you very much, Avia. That's just one of our success story. We are doing very well on the CSEC and Cape National Merit List in a number of subjects. We have them listed behind on our billboard. And finally, I say that next week, we have been invited, Jamaica Teaching Council has invited Guys Hill High School to actually partner with them at the Forum for Innovation in Education. And interestingly, at the National Arena next week at this forum, we are going to be showcasing some of the things that we are manufacturing here. And we understand the importance of manufacturing when it comes to GDP and the growth of our country. So we'll be manufacturing, and we have actually done so. Today we were selling some. If you were here a little earlier in our lunch break, you'd have been able to sample our boys' protein punch. We're making that here at Guys Hill, along with aloe skincare lotion. So we're having those innovations. So Prime Minister, you are here. We're happy to have you here. Students are happy to have you here. We look forward to you rapping with us as you speak with us, and our students will be motivated, and that is why they are seated so nicely, just awaiting the opportunity to have this one-on-one conversation with you. Thanks again for being here, Prime Minister.
Thank you so much, Principal Donald. Give him a round of applause, everyone. With us at the front, too, if you keep applauding, your chairman of the board. You know, the schools are very critical, and boards at the schools critical in terms of your welfare. Mr. Oswald Williams, everybody, give him a round of applause. And of course, you have your head girl, your head boy, and of course, the member of parliament. I don't know if Mr. Williams just wants to take a minute to say hello to you and greet you as students. Mr. Williams.
Welcome to Guys Hill High School. I'm very glad that the PM has made it his effort to be here. Have you seen him? You were sitting inside while you were speaking outside. Have you seen him? He's right here.
Up here.
He's right here. So welcome, and I want you to welcome the PM and to be of your best behavior. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. And now, your member of parliament. She's doing a fine job in terms of going around and making sure that your welfare as students taken care of. There are some things that she told me earlier regarding just what's going on in the community, in the school, regarding all the access to amenities that need to be made here. And the principal will tell you as well what's been happening and the fine job she's doing. Ladies and gentlemen, please give a round of applause to Ms. Carencia Morrison.
Thank you so much, Press Secretary, Ms. Naomi Francis, and I identify with the greeting sufficiently established by Principal Donald, except that I will say a very special welcome again to the Most Honorable Prime Minister of Jamaica, the Honorable Andrew Michael Holness. Now, students, forgive me if I refer to him as my Prime Minister. That apostrophe will always be there because I know he is a Prime Minister who believes in youths, who believes in the core values of nation building. And so without attempting to rain on the parade that is all he is today, I will only say that in 2016, when I was told that I was going to be appointed as a senator, and I wondered, this awesome responsibility, this sense of achievement, I wondered how come. I pinched myself and I asked, are really me? Me? I am going to be appointed? And then the answer came. I have a prime minister and the leader of a party who believed not only in youths, but in persons who strive, persons who are ambitious, persons who are determined, persons who are from humble beginnings. As you, many of you here, are from humble beginnings. You don't have a prime minister who hype, who show off, who born rich, who stush. He know about life. He know about dumpling and butter. He know about hard life. He know about when the going gets tough and the tough gets going. And I'm sure that Prime Minister will tell you today to set goals, achieve them, and that nothing is impossible when you're disciplined and when you're determined. Prime Minister, it is a pleasure to welcome you to Guys Hill High School.
MP Morrison, you said it perfectly well. The Prime Minister understands what it is to grow up and have a hard life, but through determination, hard work, he gets to success. So this year, the Prime Minister has a singular focus, and he's been saying it over and over again. The great thing about repetition is that every morning when you wake up and you're trying to get to school, I'm sure you have a parent or someone in your household say, hurry up because you're going late, or hurry up because, or your teacher will come and say, listen, you have to do this right. You have to turn in things on time. The importance of repetition helps you to build your character. So this year, the Prime Minister says, let us focus. Focus does a lot of things for you. It helps you to achieve your goals. Because if every time you have something to do and you go off, it takes longer to get to the goal that you have. So if you're doing homework and somebody calls you to do something else other than your homework, you're going to take a little longer to do that homework, right? Your Avia, who came third, is it in the entire Caribbean? First, I beg your pardon, in the entire Caribbean in agricultural sciences. She was focused in what she did. So this year, the Prime Minister says, let's focus on a couple of things. Productivity. And don't think that it's for the adults, it's for you. How am I going to be a productive student and a productive Jamaican? He's going to tell you a little bit more about that. And then we have a problem with how do we get to peace? What do you see peace being? Why is it that we're so rough and not so tender with each other? He's going to talk a little bit about that today. And then here's the thing. It all leads to success. And that success, some people call it prosperity. Some people call it wealth. And wealth doesn't have to mean money in your pocket. Wealth can mean how you stand tall, how confident you are. And so, ladies and gentlemen, it gives me great pleasure to welcome your Prime Minister who stands tall, who is confident, and who has a vision about your future, that later on when he and I are old and the rest of us adults here are old, that we will feel confident that you have a Jamaica, that you can take good care of us. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome your Prime Minister, the Most Honorable Andrew Holness.
Thank you very much, Naomi. Thank you, Principal Donald and MP Kerencia and Chairman Williams. And I didn't get the name of your head girl. And head girl Smith. Now, you would have heard me say outside that I spent some time in the classroom. So I know a little bit about how to manage the attention of students. So, and you know, it wasn't so long ago, as I said, that I too was in sixth form, and some dignitary would have come to address the audience, and there would be 1,000,001 thoughts in my brain, including issues that I have to treat with personally, schoolwork, things at home, worrying about where your lunch money is going to come from, all kinds of things running through your mind right now. Or, you know, you may have stayed up late watching Netflix last night and you may be a little bit tired. Or you just had to travel so long on the bus to get home that you just haven't recovered yet and your body is just saying, I want to rest. So there's so many things happening that will cause an audience to wander off into other thoughts. And so because I'm aware of that there is a limit to attention spans, a natural limit, then I will craft my comments to be within that natural limit. And the scientists say that for young people, the attention span could be from 15 minutes to 25 minutes. More 15 than 25. And it is in the first 10 minutes of a presentation that you're going to get the most out of it. So I haven't started my presentation yet. So I'm going to start my presentation to you now. But before I do, I'm going to ask you to focus right here. All of you, just keep your focus here. And I'm going to ask you to clear your mind. Can you do that? It's very difficult to clear your mind, but it can be accomplished by just focusing on one thought. So the thought that I want you to focus on today is productivity. So what should be happening in your mind now is, what does productivity mean? What is productivity? And I can see in some of your eyes that you're thinking about productivity. What is he talking about? What does it mean? What is productivity? What is he talking about? And in others, you're still off somewhere. But I want all of you to focus on productivity. Okay. So would anyone want to volunteer to tell me what they think productivity is about? Any volunteers? Otherwise, I'm going to select someone. All right. I see someone who wants to tell me about productivity. What's your name? Miss Sewell? What do you think productivity means? All right. Tell me, what do you think productivity means?
Put the mic up a little. Yes, go ahead.
All right. So when we talk about to produce, what do we mean? To make. That's what we mean, right? When we say we're producing, we're making things, right? And then the productivity means how much of that thing can we make? How fast can we make it? How more efficient can it be? So that's what productivity is. All right, Miss Sewell?
Yes, sir.
All right, so you promise me you're going to be productive? Very good. How many people thought of that with productivity? Yes? Yes? So to produce, to make, and the productivity, how quickly can we do it? How fast, how efficient can we do it? What's the rate at which we do it? So, Jamaica, your country, your nation, is now at a phase in its development where we are all trying to grow our economy. Yeah, we're all trying to grow our economy. But an important part of growing the economy is our individual productivity. Meaning, what does each person contribute to the national output? So, do you believe that you are contributing to the national output? Tell me, how can you contribute to the national output?
I can contribute to the natural out. Okay.
Come on, come stand up. Tell me, how are you going to contribute to the national output?
I can contribute to. Okay. I can contribute to the national output by becoming a soldier and protecting the country.
Very good. Very good. So immediately, he got to the core of the matter. That all of you here, every last one of you here, will contribute to the production of value in the country in some way. I didn't get your name. What was your name? You could just tell me.
Warren Anderson. Warren Anderson.
Mr. Anderson here intends to become a soldier and protect the country. So that's one way of creating value. Value in security. What do you intend to do? How are you going to add to the production of value in the country?
Entering into computer sciences, sir.
You're going to do computer sciences.
Yes, sir.
And that is a field that we need a lot of people in, because that is really the cutting edge. That is the growing industry. Thank you very much. And we look forward to you in that field of computer science. Anybody else want to tell me how they're going to contribute to the production of the country? Sure.
So I want to become a registered nurse. Yes. I see that nursing in Jamaica, the nurses, it's kind of short. So I want to contribute by being a productive nurse.
So I think by now we are all getting the picture that the careers and professions and skills that you're here trying to develop, that will contribute to our economy, and it will all accumulate in something that we call the GDP. Anybody has ever heard that term before? You've heard it so many times. The GDP. You want to tell us what it means?
GPS is
GDP.
GDP.
The GDP. Anybody wants to tell me what that means? The GDP. Oh, you don't want to tell me again? All right, I'll tell you what it means. Who wants to tell me? All right, I'll tell you what it means. It's called the gross national product. All right? The gross national product, the GDP. Never heard of it before? Oh, no. That's the GNP. But the GDP is a gross domestic product. But when we talk about the total production of Jamaica, we also think about what we produce here and what our companies produce and own overseas. But the GDP is, yes, it's a gross domestic product, what we produce here locally. Now, I'm going through this exercise because I want all of you to appreciate that you are a part of our GDP. And what you do helps to create the GDP. If we want to grow the GDP, then we have to make sure that everyone who is going to contribute to the GDP produces more. So our national growth is dependent upon what each and every one of you here will do. Let me give you a perfect example of what I'm talking about. Just today, or yesterday, one of our research institutes released the findings of a study that they had conducted. And essentially, what they're saying is that for Jamaica to grow, we need to overcome shortages and gaps in our labor market. Now, all of you here will join the labor market in another year or so. Yeah. Essentially, yes. Because most of you here would be about 16, 15, 17. There you go. So once you graduate from high school, if you are not registered into further education, and even when you are registered in further education, you could potentially join the labor markets. Most of you here would have to be seeking employment. Isn't that the case? Some of you, most of you, are going to be seeking employment. So the study essentially is saying that Jamaica at 4.5% unemployment, which is the lowest ever in our history, it means that people who are seeking work, most of them are employed. Only 4.5% of those seeking work haven't found employment as yet. That's a good thing. It means that when you graduate, the waiting time for a job is going to be less because there are so many jobs out there seeking persons to be employed. But there is a challenge. And the challenge is that we have students clearly leaving high school, but they don't yet have the skills to fill those jobs. So, Mr. Principal, I know that part of your role here is to make sure that your education that you give your kids here, that it is aligned with what industry needs. But even so, at your age, you wouldn't have all the skills. You couldn't leave here and become a sous chef right away. You couldn't leave here and become a computer programmer right away. There needs to be more time for you in the education system to refine those skills. Or you could develop those skills through some program of apprenticeship or internship in a company where you work and learn and get certification. But the challenge is that there are so many jobs coming up that require certain skills, particularly technical skills, and we don't have enough persons to match those jobs. And so there is a call emerging from firms, from companies, to say, until we have those skills, we should allow persons who have those skills overseas to work in Jamaica. Now, one of the reasons why we don't have the skills, Mr. Principal, is that some of these very students here will get their education at Guys Hill. They will go on to UTech. They will go on to University of the West Indies or one of the other universities. They will develop these important skills. They will go to Hart, and then they will migrate. Isn't that the case? If I did a survey in here, I would see a significant percentage of persons who intend to migrate. Isn't that true? Even if you can't migrate, but it's still your intention. And I know when I was growing up, it was the same thing. It wasn't any different. I had many friends who postponed their lives waiting on a chance to migrate. They said, it didn't make sense that I do anything in Jamaica because my mother is going to file for me, send for me, as they said at that time. And then when I go over there, I will start life. And I know that there may be a few persons here thinking like that. Now, imagine that this has been happening for 40 years, where we are training students in schools just like this, and a significant percentage get their subjects, get qualified, and then migrate. So what happens to Jamaican businesses? What happened to the computer scientists that should be here helping the businesses here? What happened to the production of that computer science? What happened to the production of that nurse and that soldier? What happens to our healthcare system? What happens to our national security when the people leave and we don't get the value that they could create? The gross domestic and the gross national product that we produce is reduced. The potential is reduced. Because if it is you, the people, who make the production, then if you leave and go and produce it for another country somewhere else, what happens to your own country? I hope I'm getting through to you. That I need you to start to think about how we're going to grow Jamaica, the place where you live and you will inherit and you will be in charge of in very short order. That the solution is not somewhere else. The solution is right here in this hall amongst you. And each and every one of you is part of the solution to our challenges locally. Yeah. So, yes, the studies is saying that we have gaps in our labor market. We just don't have enough labor, skilled labor, to supply the economy. So what is happening is that businesses have seen certainty in the economic environment, meaning that they say, yes, the tax policy is good, the fiscal incentives are good, and therefore I can take up money and build a factory. Or I can start a BPO operation. Or I can open a new diagnostic center. But for me to do that, I need people who will operate in the BPO. I need people who have training in computer science or in data science. If I open a new restaurant, I'm going to need chefs. Where are they going to come from? So that's where we are. Our economy wants to take off. People want to invest. We have 3 or 4 hotels being built right now that will give us close to 2,000 rooms easily. But we just don't have enough staff to operate the hotel. For every 1 tourist, we need about 2 or 3 staff for some hotels. How many of you here are studying hospitality and hotel management? It's a big field. And we need people in that field. Good. Good. So, you are the first generation of students in a long time, that will be entering an economy locally where you will be quickly absorbed. Quickly absorbed. But you are also the first generation in a long time that will be able to expand the GDP of the country by virtue of your production. Now, it's one thing to get a job, to turn up, sit at the desk, and as the clock strikes 5, you get up and you go. And that's the mentality of many persons. I'm just doing what is necessary to be paid, and that's it. But that is not going to be enough to be productive. You will produce, but there's no guarantee that you're going to do more than you did last year. Because what has happened to us as a people for a very long time is that there is a disconnection between what we expect to be paid and what we actually produce. I don't want this generation of Jamaicans to go out into the labor market with that mentality. Because if you were to migrate and go somewhere else, it would be a totally different mentality. You would be holding down 2 or 3 jobs because the more output you give, the more you expect to be paid. We want you to have that same productive mentality right here in Jamaica, to do more with your time and your effort, to work smarter with your time and your effort. To understand that you're going to increase output, and that is the only way that you're going to increase your pay. It is not the length of service that entitles you to more pay. It is the productivity of your work that will entitle you to more pay. This is a very important principle that we need this generation to have if we are going to truly grow our economy. So, each and every one of you here must consider yourself an agent of growth. And you have to promise yourself, and you have to promise me, that you're going to use your time here at school in the most productive way. You're going to strive for academic excellence. It's very important. It's very important. Pay attention to your schoolwork. Give it priority. Do the best you can do. Because that is what is going to give you greater access to better opportunities in the workforce. The other thing I would say to you here, learn a skill. So I want you all to do very well academically. Meaning, I want you to have a broad understanding and a very good grasp of the foundations of learning. Your math, your English, your social studies, your geography, your economics, your accounting, your biology, your chemistry, your physics. Get a very good grasp of those things. They are foundations. And that is what will bring you equal to your peers wherever you go in the world, including embracing and learning other languages. But what is going to differentiate you? Many years ago, when I was Minister of Education, I did a study tour to Australia. Australia is very far. And Australia has a very good educational system that focuses on skills. And I didn't really understand what it meant to have a skill until I went to Australia and interacted with a skills training institute. So we went to a Caterpillar factory. You all know about Caterpillar, the large equipment makers. They make massive mining equipment and excavators and so forth. Now they're making equipment that's about the size of this room. Huge for mining. And they have young people like you, your age, 16 and 17. They are under an apprenticeship program. And what are they doing there? So maybe 20 of them. And they were there disassembling and reassembling the equipment. Now just imagine, the equipment is the size of this room. It's huge. And they have an instructor. So I went over to a set of them, and they were doing a particular exercise. So they were screwing up, they were reassembling a part on the equipment. And it just blew my mind. They had a set of buckets with nuts and bolts and screws. And they had to reach into the bucket, feel, take up the screw or the nut or the bolt, fit it to the part on the machine. And they had to do that without looking. No, I thought, sure, that's simple. That's easy. It would be easy if it were just one size screw, one size nut, one size bolt. But there were about 20 sizes there. And the instructor pointed out that that in itself is an important skill that these students who are training to become auto mechanics and repair personnel for these huge equipment that they must have. Because if for every bolt that they have to take up, they have to turn, look down, search around, pick up, not the right one, then they have to go back again, put down, it would take them an extended period of time. To reassemble the machine compared to doing this. It's a skill. It's something that they have to do over and over, repeat it until they have developed excellence in it, till it becomes muscle memory. That they do it without thinking about it. What are you going to learn to do that you don't even have to think about it? It becomes part of you. What are you going to learn to do that you can do it so quickly that nobody else can do it as quickly as you can? That you're going to do it to a level of excellence that when people look at it, they admire you for your work. And that is a skill. So make sure you do the best in your academics, but also get a skill. Very important in today's world. So whether it is you're going to learn masonry, carpentry, electrical installation, mechanical repairs, computer repairs, painting, plumbing, all kinds of skills are needed in the Jamaican economy. Operating cranes, forklifts, excavators, all kinds of skills are needed in our economy. And not just to say, yeah, I can go behind the steering and steer the equipment. But we need people who can do it well, quickly, efficiently, and safely. And in this room, I know we have the potential skills here, Mr. Principal. And we need you for our economy. I'm happy to hear that Letitia, what's your name?
Avia Finley.
Come, Avia, join me here. That Miss Finley is developing quite a skill in agriculture. That you are the #1 student in agriculture in the Caribbean. A double award. Oh, we're so proud of you. And you're so humble. All right, you may. But that's what we want. And it is right here in this room. We want you to develop the skills that will help to grow our economy. That is what we want from you. So I'm hoping that my talk to you today will start to turn your mind into thinking about what your future will be, how you will be able to have that great future, and how you will contribute to building the output, the GDP, the production, the productivity of our country. Geisel High School must contribute to the economy of Jamaica. Now, the principal again pointed out to me that he has been so faithful in supporting the sixth form policy that he has taken on more students than the infrastructure can hold. And he has had to improvise in order that you can get access to an education. It is not under the most comfortable circumstances. It's not. I understand with these partitions, they are not sound dampening. And so it must be incredibly difficult to have one class here going and then another class going, the distractions that can happen. And that will clearly diminish the learning that takes place here relative to whether if you had a facility that was purpose-built. And we understand those challenges. And we're going to look at it. I can't make a commitment here today, but we're going to look at it. But the commitment to improving the conditions of not just Guy's-Hill, but of any school in Jamaica becomes an even greater reality when our GDP and our GNP grows. Because as it grows, it means there is more resources in the country to deal with these challenges, your education, your health care, the roads that we drove on to come here, the water supply system. For too long, we have believed that the revenue that is generated from the size of the economy that we have now is sufficient to deal with all the social problems of the country. That is not the case. And the only way we're going to be able to deal with all the social problems and the infrastructure problems of the country is when we expand our productivity. And that expansion in productivity, paired with good governance, good fiscal management of the economy, and good social policies, we will then be able to treat with the issues that you have here. So as you are about to enter the world of work, I want you to remember what I have said about productivity. Help your country to increase its productive capacity, increase its output. And when you are well into the world of work, one day you will come back to Guy's-Hill High School and say, you know, I used to go to this school when it was a chalkboard that partitioned. And now, look at the wonderful sixth form block. You know how that was accomplished? It was accomplished because the economy grew and the government was able to make the allocations. So that's my message to you on productivity. Briefly, I want to talk to you about peace. Peace. Because when I talk about peace, I know a lot of you are saying, but Jamaica is not at war. Peace is not the absence of war. Peace is not the absence of conflict. Peace exists when your population embraces reason, restorative justice, understanding, deference, forbearance, tolerance, love, and forgiveness. Are these values of Guy's-Hill High School? Or if someone pushes you, you swing and hit them down. If someone says a harsh word to you, do you respond with even harsher words? Do you escalate conflicts into physical altercations? Is that what happens here? No, I hope not. And we haven't seen anything that suggests that. How do we get Guy's-Hill's peace into the rest of Jamaica? Into our communities, into our homes. Today I'm told that there is another video of an adult physically abusing a child. I haven't seen it, and I really don't want to see any more. Because it's a sad reflection of our society. Again, you are the inheritors of the new Jamaica. And you have to take a tough stance against violence in your school, in your peer groups, in your communities, in your household. Both in terms of how you respond and how you influence your friends and peers to respond. Again, I encourage you to be agents of productivity and ambassadors of peace. Now, if you put the two things together, productivity and peace, you will have what we call prosperity. We will have a prosperous country, a country in which everyone can feel that their dreams, hopes, ambitions, aspirations can be fulfilled. So there are a lot of people who want to migrate to other societies that they consider prosperous because they feel that those societies, their dreams and aspirations, their ambitions and goals can be fulfilled. We have to make sure that you feel that your dreams and your aspirations and your goals and your objectives can be fulfilled right here in Jamaica. Nobody else from outside is going to come here and create that prosperous environment for us. We have to create that prosperous environment for ourselves. And you are a very important part of that. Each and every one of you has that duty, that role to play in creating the prosperous Jamaica. So, ladies and gentlemen, it was my great pleasure in spending time with you, in talking to you about creating our virtuous cycle of productivity, peace, prosperity. And more prosperity creates more productivity creates more peace creates more prosperity, and more prosperity creates more productivity creates more peace, and you can see the virtuous cycle being created. And that's what we want to do. God bless you, and thank you.
Guys Hill High, thank you so much. Very intent. You know what? Normally people say you should clear your throat by doing this. No, you don't. I want you to take a big swallow and do something for me. I want you to repeat 3 affirmations coming out of the Prime Minister's presentation. Ready? Take a big swallow and repeat after me. I am the solution.
I am the solution.
I am an agent of growth. Beautiful. And finally, I am an ambassador of peace.
I am an ambassador.
What the Prime Minister is saying is focus we're dealing with. If you focus on those, you'll become the citizen. You'll surprise yourself and become a great citizen of Jamaica. And of course, build that self-value and self-worth. And thank you so much for the attention that you've given. No, Prime Minister, I hear we have so many questions. Earlier I said, make sure you raise your hand. Of course, you're going to be tall and proud and speak well and, get up and don't whisper. The first thing is that we don't whisper, right? You have a mic, but I don't want you whispering. So, again, show a raise of a hand, those who have questions for the Prime Minister in terms of what he said. And again, not many people get a chance to talk anywhere in the world. I mean, even in children in America, they don't see their president a lot. You get to see your Prime Minister. So now you have an opportunity to speak to him and ask him questions. I see there's a question on this side, so I'm going to come. And Prime Minister, right after, there's some presentation to be made by the students who have done us proud by topping not just Jamaica, but the Caribbean as well. Let me go over here. I believe you have a question. Ah, there you go. All right. Remember what you do. Please stand for us.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, Prime Minister of Jamaica. My name is Jardine Lynch. I am a senior prefect at the Guys Hill High School. I'm in grade 13, and I'm from the community of Ragsville, Guys Hill. I've sat here and I've listened to your speech this entire time, and one of the major things that I've gotten from this speech is it all falls under this broad category of financing. And my question, the question I want to pitch to you is, can you elaborate on the steps that the government is taking to increase the availability and accessibility of scholarships for students in underserved communities, for students who come from very diverse backgrounds, especially students in the rural area, for example, the Guys Hill High School?
Very good question. I'm going to interpret scholarship in the broader sense, but I'm going to answer it in the sense I believe you meant it as well, which is how is the government supporting your financial ability to afford tuition into higher education? That's the sense you meant it. So let's start with what is generally available, and that is the student loan. You know that this administration has removed the requirement for having two guarantors. So now you only need one. But we are also actively considering removing this business of a guarantor. If you qualify on the path, if you're a student whose family is on path, then you get a grant, a fairly substantial grant, to go to tertiary institutions. And if you are a student from, as you call it, an underserved community, a student who is in a vulnerable situation, and you apply, they have other grants for which you can apply, and your circumstances will be assessed, and you can get a grant. Outside of that, the government has put in place measures to offer several STEM scholarships. A few hundred of them actually have been awarded by the Ministry of Finance for our students to study in the STEM field: science, technology, education, and mathematics. We have also put in place several other programs where we sponsor people in critical skills. And there are many scholarships which you would have to go through the Ministry of Finance. So the important thing is that if you apply to the Ministry of Finance, there are several scholarships there, including scholarships funded by overseas institutions and governments that you could benefit from. Now, outside of that, the government is adopting a new stance to education, meaning that the effort of the government, of previous governments, was at the primary level to attain what we call universal primary education, to increase literacy at the primary level. But you would have seen over the last 15 or so years that the new thrust of the government is to have what we call full secondary education. So we want to achieve universal secondary education, which would mean that all young persons who are of high school age, that would be between 11 and 16, should be in a high school. And so you would notice that we have done away with all-age schools. No more all-age schools and junior highs. All the schools go up to 5th form, and all students get a full 5 years of education. So that means that the full pool of students, instead of leaving school, they used to say we out school at grade 9. That is no longer the case. All students go up to at least 5th form. But we have gone one step further. And you are the products of that government financing the expansion of education. In other words, 5 years ago, you didn't have a 6th form. You have the 6th form because government has expanded the allocation, and our policy is that we want you to have, instead of 5 years, we want you to have 7 years of secondary and post-secondary education. So technically, all of you here have gotten a scholarship to 6th form. Yeah. That's what it is. And we will continue, as our budget allows us to do, to expand the 6th form opportunities right across the country so that more schools can have this. And as you turn out to be productive citizens and our economy grows, then we can increase our subsidy that we give to tertiary education so that more students can afford tertiary education. And that's what we're working towards. So I want you to understand your role in the government being able to provide. Because the thinking is that you are over here and the government is over here, and somehow the government has all the resources and not spending it. That is the worst thing that has happened to our culture, our thinking, and our country. The government can only spend what you produce, and you give authority through our democracy to spend. You are a part of the government. That's what it means to be a citizen of your country. And I want each and every one of you to take responsibility for your country in what you produce, in how efficiently you produce it, and how you participate in the democracy of the country. What we're doing here today is an example of you participating in the democracy, the governance of your country. So yes, the government has taken significant steps. In the practical sense, how you meant it, that is providing special financing for those who do well to enter and matriculate into higher levels of education. And secondly, the government expanding its expenditure to allow for universal access to higher levels of education.
Thank you for that, Prime Minister. Really appreciate that perspective. And you know, you see the students listening intently, and some of them have their pens and papers out. So clearly they're taking notes, especially those who are going to be doing CSEC and CATE, because responding creatively and infusing some of the responses that the Prime Minister has given could get you a good A, a good pass mark, right? And two, I know most of you have written down some questions to ask the Prime Minister. Your head girl called me and said, can I ask two instead of one? So allow me to give her the microphone. Do the same as well for others.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am Shamil Smith, a 13th grader. Good afternoon, Mr. Prime Minister. So while listening to your presentation, I have come up with two questions to ask you. You mentioned something about BPO centers, if I am right. And you also mentioned that unemployment is at its lowest. So statistics has shown that as well, and it is also evident that the majority of adolescents applying and working at call centers have rapidly increased. How sustainable are these jobs, and should a student who attended university for 4 or 5 years just settle with a placement at a call center?
All right, very good question, and that question is loaded and a reflection of the social consciousness of the society. Now, every job has value. The job itself has an intrinsic value, but you bring value to the job as well. And our ethic as a people must be, whatever our job is, we're going to do it well. It is in doing even the most menial job well that you build on top of that to get to the most glorious and sought after job. So that ethic of working hard on whatever you do, I want you to keep that in your mind. Now, the issue as to whether or not BPO jobs are sustainable. The business process outsourcing industry has been around for a very long time. It is a recent addition to Jamaica's employment landscape. And it has been here now for about 20 years in the form that we have had it. But when it started out, we employed about 5,000 persons. Now we are close to 60,000 persons. So after 20 years, the industry is sustainable. But all jobs, no matter what, all jobs face obsolescence. You know what that means? At some point in time, some jobs will no longer exist. Okay? At some point in time, some services will no longer exist. Agree? And let me very quickly tell you of a story. Today, this is how we take pictures. Today. But I remember buying a disposable camera and taking Kodak pictures. And I had to take those reels of film to a Photoshop to have them developed. Now you tell me whether or not that is a significant profession or a job today. In fact, you know, when we talk about Photoshop, we're talking about Adobe Photoshop. We're talking about a software. So no matter what job it is, it will change over time. And the better thing for me to have said, rather than the job becomes obsolete, is that the skills required to perform the service will change. So it's not only important for you to develop one skill. It is important that you develop the ability to learn several skills. Do you remember earlier what I said to you? Develop your academic base. It is that academic base that is going to give you the knowledge for you to learn multiple skills. So yes, artificial intelligence and greater computing power is changing the landscape for business process outsourcing. It may very well require simple tasks such as answering telephones are no longer needed. You no longer need a human being to answer the phone and say hello. If you pick up the phone to call a bank in the United States, it is highly likely that you're going to hear a machine speaking to you. So yes, the skills required in the job may change. But the same person who we had answering the phone, that person should also have developed a skill in data analysis. Because they're going to need now to not just have someone answer the phone, but they're going to need someone to analyze what was the frequency of complaints from the calls received? So we need somebody who is trained in statistics and data science to examine the call logs and see what the problem was. And then the only time there might be human intervention is when there is an exception. So we need somebody trained in dealing with exceptions that happen as a result of analyzing the data. So there's not the case that human beings won't have a job. That's not the case. The case is that you need to be able to develop the skills as the technology changes. So you need to have a foundation in mathematics. Don't bother saying, no, I'll never use maths. Not true. You need to have a foundation in languages. Very important. So, I believe I've answered your question. Yes, the industry is sustainable. I have no challenges with the industry. It will continue to grow. But we need to increase the skill level. We need to upskill the industry so that as low-level skills become redundant and obsolete, that same labor force can be transitioned into other knowledge-based and higher-paying roles.
Prime Minister, thank you so much for that. You know that the auditorium is quite full, and we have students even at the back who've been signaling to ask a question. So we have someone from the Math Club who is asking a question. Could you identify yourself and ask the Prime Minister?
Good afternoon. My name is Kiana Wilson, and I'm a part of the grade 11 class. I have two questions for you, Mr. Prime Minister, and they are there any measures that the government is putting in place to reduce brain drain? And do you think our country will accomplish its 2030 vision?
A very good question.
Thank you.
Very good question. So, on the first one, what do you think I'm doing here? One of the things we have to do is to appeal to you. I mean, I don't want to say to you, don't go overseas or don't leave Jamaica. That's not what I'm saying to you. Because I believe in our Jamaicans traveling and getting exposed. Because it is in getting the exposure that you widen and broaden your mind and your understanding of the world, and you increase your creativity and your innovativeness, and you are able to become a better person. So yes, I would encourage you to travel and embrace other cultures and see new things and even work in other countries. But I would also encourage you to come back home. And I would also encourage you to make a life here in Jamaica. So that's one measure. It's very difficult for governments to stop their population going overseas. You know, let's face it, the Vice President of the United States, her father is a Jamaican. The truth is that the history of Jamaica is that we have always been a net provider of skills to the world. We are a net provider of talent to the world. Okay? And that is not going to change. Whether it is the building of the Panama Canal, the rebuilding of the United Kingdom after World War II, the building of New York, whatever it is. That's why we have such a large diaspora. But in a sense, it is also the reason why we have the challenges that we have. If you look at a country close to us like Cayman, almost half of the population of Cayman are Jamaicans. But it is some of our best talents. You cannot build a country without the talents of the people. And if our talents keep leaving, we're going to be in a deficit. So, if you have to leave, I'm not going to tell you not to. But we need your talents here as well. So the other part of the question is, will we achieve Vision 2030? What is Vision 2030? Anyone can tell me? Vision 2030, Jamaica, the place of choice to live, work, raise families, and do business. And I like to say retire in paradise. How are we going to achieve that if all of you are overseas and all you do is send back remittances to support grandma? How are we going to actually build the computer industry here? How are we going to actually care for people in our hospital? How are we going to actually teach? And if our best talents leave, then what do we have? How do we increase productivity? And that's the essence of the argument. I'm very happy you've raised that question. If we're going to achieve Vision 2030, we need our talent right here. We need you right here. And we need you to develop your skills and develop your talent so that we can increase our productivity, so that we can achieve the prosperity. Because what is the prosperity? The prosperity is that you have the choice. You don't feel you have to leave. You choose to stay here. Because this is the place where you can live, raise your families, do business, and retire in paradise. Wow, what a wonderful question, because it just ties everything together.
Thank you so much, Prime Minister. Several hands I'm seeing. I'm really only going to take one more because the Prime Minister has several other stops and another parish to be in today as well. Do we want the male ending the question segment or the female? I saw her earlier. I may just squeeze in the male then. Let me get you one question and one to you.
Good afternoon again, Sir Prime Minister. In the 2016 installation, you said, and I quoted, we are going to be able to sleep with our windows open or doors open. So my question to you is, however, how are we going to do that? What is your administration doing to curtail crime and violence in Jamaica?
Again, excellent question. And, you know, I've been asked about this question so many times. The idea behind asking the question is to say you have failed in achieving a promise or a commitment. Let me say this, that it must be everyone's dream to be able to sleep with our windows and doors open. We must never undervalue that aspiration. In the same way, we must not undervalue Jamaica being the place of choice to live, work, and raise families. It's an aspiration. Should we not aspire to it? Is it something that you would want to see in your community? And therefore, we must keep it as a goal, as a dream, and not relish that it is something that we have not yet achieved. But having dealt with the motivation that sometimes that question comes with, a couple of years ago, during the pandemic, I had occasion to visit an elderly lady that I met through an engagement like this. And when I went to her community, it was somewhere in St. Anne. A group of people came out to see me, some of them farmers, teachers. There was a school principal and her students there, basic school. And one of them said to me, you know, Prime Minister, in this community, you know, we sleep with our windows and doors open. There are many communities like that in Jamaica, where people do have that level of peace, safety, and security. The challenge we have with crime and violence is pretty much like behavioral problems in schools. When I was Minister of Education, we did an assessment. Less than 1% of the school population accounted for behavior problems that disrupted the school. Think about it. In your classroom, who are the people that disrupt the classroom with bad behavior? It's not all the class. It's usually just a very small, if any. And we have that challenge in the country. But the challenge has been there for many years, and it has been left unattended. And it has grown to a point where it has become organized. So we do face a problem with organized violence. So it's one thing that yourself and your neighbor has an argument and you end up in a fight, like we have seen happen before. The neighbor sweeps the rubbish and the rubbish goes over to the other person's yard. The person comes out and says, "You're sweeping rubbish over my yard," and they fight and machete is drawn and a life is lost. That's one form of violence. That's social violence. It's not organized, domestic. But we have another form of violence, which I didn't intend to carry into the conversation here, but since you have raised it, and that is gang violence. I hope none of you here are associated with, connected to a member of any gangs. Because the gangs are insidious. You might not even know that they are a gang. But their intention is to pull you in, to have you associated, and then they will ask you to do things that you might not even know is part of this bigger organized plan of using violence to secure economic gain. So they might say to you, "Stand on the corner and tell me, just call me if you see any police coming." And they give you money to do that. And you didn't even know that what you are doing is helping to inform the criminals when police is in the area. Yeah. Sometimes they will give you some money and they say, "Look, go to the bank and just lodge that for me. Or go to the Western Union and collect this for me." And you might just think it's just, but you are part of some bigger lottery scamming or some other forms of scams. And this exists in our society. And if there is any dispute between them or dispute with another gang, then they hire hitmen. Or they themselves go and purchase guns and carry out the heinous act. So we do have this problem with gangs. And you would have noticed that we have brought 2 cases to court where gangs have been prosecuted. So we have developed the anti-gang legislation, and we are going after the gangs as far as the law allows us to do. This year, all serious crimes are at their lowest level in 23 years. The lowest level in 23 years, and that's statistically proven. Murders are down 7.8% this year. But they are still at what I consider to be an intolerably high level. And so we have to put in stronger measures, in my opinion, to change the risk-reward ratio for the commission of crimes. So our criminals feel that they can bust the case, as they say. That if they get arrested, they get a good lawyer, and even if they are convicted, the time that they will spend in prison is not a deterrent. So we are going through that process now of increasing the penalties to change the risk-reward ratio for crimes. One law that we have done that with, and it is now having an effect, is with the Firearms Act. When I was going to school, we used to play something called gun war. I don't know if kids... it was, you know, we make board guns and we run up and down and cowboys and Indians and that kind of thing. I guess these days it's video games. And so there's always a kind of, you know, youthful fascination with guns. Unfortunately, it has moved from just youthful fascination to an addiction. So youngsters who find themselves around guns literally get addicted to the power that guns give them, because immediately they believe that they get a sense of respect in the community. Not understanding that it is not a respect, it is fear. People fear them. And they get addicted to that. And they want to be seen with guns. Unfortunately, a few days ago, a 14-year-old was killed. And a firearm, I understand, was recovered. And then subsequently, there were pictures being circulated of allegedly of the youngster with firearms. And I say to all of you here, particularly our young boys, do not get involved, associated with anything to do with a gun. The penalties are very harsh. And they will get harsher. So there are many things the government is doing. And the government's investment in national security is working. Serious crimes are down. So murders are down, shootings, rapes, robberies, break-ins are all down. And has been going down over the last 5 years. Murders continue to be a challenge. But again, the people who murder, a very small number who commit a lot of crimes, and we are working through intelligence to slowly get at them and the gangs. It will take some time, but I'm confident. In the same way I'm confident that we will achieve Vision 2030, we will reduce our murders. And one of the reasons why I'm here today is just for that. Focus on productivity, but we also focus on peace. And if we focus on peace, no murderers will be coming out of this classroom. How about that? And if Guys Hill doesn't contribute to the problem, and all the other schools doesn't contribute to the problem will be solved. So remember now, you, all of you here, are agents of productivity, ambassadors of peace. And we focus on those two things, we will achieve Vision 2030, which is prosperity.
Thank you, Prime Minister. Everybody give the Prime Minister a round of applause. All right, we have to make a very hard stop there. Thank you so much. You've been so attentive. Prime Minister, do you know that the 4-H Teacher of the Year is from Guys Hill High? Miss Bailey? Is Miss Bailey around? Wave to the Prime Minister, please. She may be around the back. Also, the Teacher of the Year for Mathematics and second place in Region 6 and 15th for Jamaica is also here. Shaveen Harrison. Give Miss Harrison a round of applause, ma'am. Wonderful. But today, Prime Minister, if you will, we have 3 big awards that we have to hand out. Mr. Principal, I want you to as well come along, because Prime Minister, Guys Hill High, the creme de la creme, could not have you here and not have you present this major award to a very special student. Mr. Principal.
Can I ask Mrs. Taylor to join me up here, please? Mrs. Taylor. In the interim, as Ms. Taylor gets here for the other awards, we have this big award, as mentioned by Ms. Francis. And this award, as you would imagine, students, we have been celebrating this outstanding student, Avia Finley, ever since her name came out on the merit list. as that is being done, I must say, and it would be remiss of me not to say, that the successes of our students here is highly dependent on the hard work and the worth of all the members of staff. Students, can you put your hands together for all of your teachers? And as I say that, we are looking at agriculture. We're in an agricultural community, and the head of the science department and our agriculture teacher par excellence is none other than Mrs. Janet Taylor. She's right here. As we acknowledge Ms. Taylor, we have some awards here because we have a peasant farmer who lived in this community. He died, but his children has ensured that his legacy remains. And at this time, his grandson, Craig Gordon, is ensuring that the legacy lives on, and therefore the students who do very well in agriculture science at Guys Hill High School are awarded. And I ask now that Raven Harley, he's third place in the school that is, does very well, come forward to collect this award in honor of Mr. Franklin Redwood, a former peasant farmer in Guys Hill. And these were specially sent from a donor in Canada. As we acknowledge Raven for all that he has done and continues to do in agriculture, I'm now going to be asking that the presentation be made to Dahima Tucker. And finally, we're going to be making a presentation now to Janara Taylor, who came in the first 5 in the Island for Agriculture Science double award. And she's actually the daughter of Mrs. Taylor. I must put that in. Thank you very much.
Well done, well done. Guys, give yourselves another round of applause, please. We do have one final thing, but before we do that, I do know that you've had questions. Several students, Prime Minister, had their hands up. We will ensure that we get your questions, but remember too that the Prime Minister is always accessible. Anybody knows how? Through what? Through what? Through me. No. That's a very good answer. But all of you, I'm sure, have a cell phone, right? So you have social media. So he's always accessible on social media. Of course, Andrew Holness JM on all the platforms, Facebook. Which one are you on? You're on TikTok, right? Mr. Principal? They're on TikTok, I'm sure. All right. And you're also on Instagram. I hear Instagram over there. All right. You're on Instagram and Facebook as well as Twitter. So Andrew Holness JM is where to go. Swallow again for me. Ready again. I am the solution. I am an agent of growth. I am an ambassador of peace. Give yourselves a round of applause. Your head girl is going to do the vote of thanks.
All protocols observed, good afternoon. It is with immense gratitude and great honor that I stand before you today representing the student body as the head girl of Guys Hill High School. On behalf of the students and all staff members, I extend my sincerest thanks to you, Prime Minister Holness, for gracing us with your presence and for your dedicated service to our nation. Your emphasis on education as a cornerstone of national development resonates deeply within us, the students. Your tireless efforts to improve educational infrastructure, promote innovation, and create opportunities for the youth reflect your vision for a brighter and more prosperous future. We, the entire Geisel High School family, look forward to creating partnerships and the possibilities of investing within our school community. Prime Minister Holness, your visit today serves as a momentous occasion for our school community. Your presence reinforces our belief in significance of education and youth encouragement in nation-building process. May you be thankful, sir, for your leadership, and may God continue to bless your leadership. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Geisel High. Thank you for hosting us. The Prime Minister has another presentation to make. Or Geisel, I beg your pardon, is presenting the Prime Minister. Thank you so much, Geisel. And Ryan Ray Hyatt, the head boy, is there. Prime Minister, that's a 50th anniversary, is it, mug? All right, that's another cup, sir, that you will have in your collection. So, Geisel High, thank you so much for hosting the Prime Minister. He really, really enjoyed it. And thank you for being so attentive. Remember, what's the word for this year? Boy, them listening, you know. Productivity. All right, and of course, peace and prosperity. Thank you all for being such a good audience. And remember, be confident. We're Jamaicans, right? Have a good afternoon, everybody.
Well, before you go,
yes.
Thank you so much, Press Secretary. Now, I couldn't come to the school and not support the efforts of the school. So I was just talking to your principal, and he mentioned that you have so many extracurricular activities, so many clubs, but he recommended the Key Club as the club that I should seek to give some sponsorship to. So I wish to announce that I will give some sponsorship to the Key Club. So, Mr. Principal, you will put together a little program, and then we'll determine how we can support the Key Club of the school. Thank you so much. You have been a wonderful audience.
Everybody, take good care. Bye.